Today's workout is a 20-minute postpartum back pain workout. We'll spend the first half of the workout strengthening the muscles to support our backs during that postpartum period where we're carrying, rocking a baby, maybe even breastfeeding. And then the last half of the workout will stretch and relieve tension in the neck, back, and shoulders so you feel good. This workout will help you if you've had a baby or just have back pain in general. All you need is a mat. Let's get started. Hey mamas, welcome to today's workout. If you've got postpartum back pain or tension and you want to fix it, this workout is for you. We're going to do some gentle movement plus some optional weighted movements to help strengthen and then release that tension in the back. So let's get started. We're going to begin with a good morning. So your feet are underneath your hips, hip width apart. Your hands are going to come across your chest and you're going to hinge at your hips, coming down, back flat, parallel to the floor, and then stand up, squeeze your glutes, knees are soft, hips are under the shoulders. Let's do that again. So we hinge from the hips. Now what's different from a squat versus a hinge? In a squat, you're pushing your hips down and back, bending at the knees. In a hinge, you're hinging at the hips rather, pushing the butt back, so you feel that work in the back of your body primarily, those glutes, the hamstrings, and then safely in your lower back. And as you find mobility and find comfort in this exercise, you can start to work that back so it's parallel to the floor. If you can't quite get that low, just go as low as you can until you start to feel compensation happen. We never want to round that spine. We always want to keep it in neutral. That means from the top of the head to the tailbone, it's mostly in a straight line. So we're gonna move on from that movement to a hinge into a deep squat. So you're gonna reach your arms long for me. We're gonna hinge at the hips, aiming to touch those toes. Go as low as you can, and then we're gonna drop the hips down and then stand up. Let's repeat that. So arms down, we're hinging at the hips, reaching for those toes or as low as you can go with good posture. Drop down gently into a squat and stand up. I'll show you this from the front. So you can take your feet a little bit wider here, whatever feels comfortable, hinging and then sitting back into those hips. And you can even go really deep in that squat, as deep as it feels good. And again, I want you to focus on that posture. So you can see me from the side. My back is flat. Again, I've got a neutral spine. And as I sit back, you notice my spine is not rounding. I'm going pretty low here because I have the flexibility and I can keep my chest up. If you cannot do that, don't feel pressure. Go as low as you can and stay a little shallow in that squat. Let's rest here. We're gonna move on to a plank crawl. So come to the back of your mat. We're gonna take the feet wide here, crawl forward and then right back. So I want you to squat down first, crawl forward into a plank. You can drop the knees here if you'd like to, and you're gonna crawl straight back here. Do you notice how I'm moving through a squat? So as you push the hips back, you're loading those glutes, and then you're keeping those knees low to the ground, or you're extending fully into that plank, and then you're also going back through that squat before you stand up. So again, neutral spine for the most part, keeping that chest up, shoulders back, core engaged. And these are also great movements for helping engage the core, create mobility through the hips, which is all really important. Everything is connected in the body. It's not just isolated back pain. There's usually some other tension and muscle weakness contributing to that back pain. So we want to figure out what's going on there. Moving on to a deadlift. So optional, grab some light to medium weights here. I'm using 5 pounds, but you could go slightly heavier if you'd like to. From this side, feet under the hips, shoulders are back and down, core is braced. Hinge at your hips just like we did for that good morning, except now your arms are extended, you're reaching down mid-shin and then stand up. Now I say mid-shin, but really the range of motion is dependent upon your posture. If you start to notice your back feeling tight or you're starting to round your spine, that's how you know you've gone too low. So if you can't go as low as I am with good posture, try to stay up a little higher, or if you could get even lower, go for it. But the goal is not to necessarily go as low as possible, right? The goal is to feel that work in the back of the body, the glutes, hamstrings, and then on the way up, little squeeze of the glutes, and you'll notice my hips are neutral at the top. So right here, not here. That's a big mistake women make. Let's stop here. We're gonna keep that movement, but we're gonna do it in a kickstand position. So front foot goes back, keep both weights or drop one, your choice. We're gonna hinge into that front leg, loading that front glute, stand up. Let's do that again. So look at my back foot. The heel's off the ground, the toes are both pointed forward. I'm hinging forward and standing tall. Now, again, shoulders are back and down. I'm pressing those weights almost like I'm trying to push them into my leg. That's gonna load that back body, that glute. Again, it's a hinge, not a squat. So we wanna really feel that stretch through the hamstrings. And again, you're driving the hips forward. So at the top, your glutes are engaged, your core is engaged, your pelvic floor is engaged, pulling that belly button in toward the spine. But again, it's neutral, so it's not here. Remember, we're not trying to thrust the hips forward. That takes that work out of the deep core, the pelvic floor, and puts it excessively into the back, and we don't want that. Let's rest here. We're gonna drop one weight now. The same leg that's forward, we're gonna keep that leg forward. We're gonna go to a row, so just one weight. We're gonna pull that elbow up and back. Here we go. The opposite hand can go on the hip. And you notice I'm keeping everything square to the front here. So I'm looking out about 6 feet in front, and then my chest is over my knee, over my middle foot. I'll show you here from the side. And the majority of my weight here is in that front leg. So I'm engaging that glute, engaging my core, belly button to spine, neutral, and then pulling that elbow up and back, engaging through the lats here. So really good for the core. Every time you pull, that core has to work hard to stabilize. You're also strengthening those muscles in the back, in the deep core, firing up that glute, those hip muscles, which again, really important to support a strong spine. Couple more here. And rest. Okay, we're gonna move to the other side. So back to that kickstand deadlift. So switch legs, this time back foot goes back. Again, just a little bit of space between those legs, you don't need much. And we're gonna hinge from the hip, pressing those weights into the legs. Stand up, squeeze that booty. You should always have a little pinch between your shoulder blades, not an excessive arch in that upper back, but you want a little squeeze, and that way you're gonna engage that upper back safely. Keep tension there. And again, you might not be able to go as low in this hinge position as you could with the feet under your hips, and that's totally fine. It's not about how low you can go, remember, it's about how you're engaging the muscles. So pushing back into that hinge, feeling that stretch through the hamstrings, using that front heel to engage the glute by pushing down at the top. Just a couple more here. Rest. All right, drop one weight now. We're gonna move back to that kickstand row. So again, good posture, abs engaged, hinge, and then pull. Again, that opposite hand can be on your hip, or you could take it here. And that amount of space between your feet kind of depends on your balance and your comfort level as well. You don't want them to be too close together, but you also don't want to be too far back either. Think of that back leg like a kickstand, right? It's there for balance, but theoretically, you could lift it off the floor, and then you're engaging those lats. Pulling that belly button in, dumbbell toward those ribs. This is great too, because every time you pull, you're having to resist rotating toward that pulling arm, and that's great for strengthening the core. And your glute should be firing the whole time too. You should really feel that front glute. Let's rest. All right, we're gonna move to the floor now. Drop your weight, safely come to hands and knees for a bird dog. So knees are under hips, hands are under shoulders. We're gonna take the front leg and back arm, raise it up, bring it back down. Switch sides. Your arm is going to shoulder height, or your leg to about hip level. Toes are pointed toward the ground. You can flex or point the feet, but toes to the ground, and then thumb up, shoulders back and down. So that way you can retract the shoulder blades, keep that neutral spine. There will be a slight curve in the back, but mostly neutral. Chin tucked, eyes between the hands. And then belly button is pulling toward the spine as you lift, squeezing the glute to engage that deep core and pelvic floor muscles. So you're always pulling in and up with that pelvic floor. It's like swallowing a blueberry. It's a very gentle movement. It's not forcing the core to brace. It's not pushing into the body. It's rather drawing in. release here. We're gonna move to the belly. Now, if you're newly postpartum, you might avoid this movement for a while. But for now, we're gonna come down, arms wide, legs together. We're gonna do an airplane. So the front arm comes up and the back leg come up together. Switch sides. Now you're gonna look toward the direction of that hand. So you're tucking the chin, looking toward the hand, and that might mean you don't come up quite as high off the ground. That's okay. I want you to think about really rotating, and the leg when it comes up is straight. So the toes pointed, the leg is straight. Squeezing that glute at the top, using that opposite hand to press into the floor to really lift. It's tougher than it looks. Even it out. And rest. Okay, moving on to a stretch portion of the workout. So now we let all that tension go. I want you to take your knees wide, your heels, hips to your heels, your arms in front for a child's pose. We're just gonna release here. Just let all that tension go. Breathe into it. I want you to take deep breaths, really filling the belly up with air, going into the diaphragm, into those ribs. Another big contributor to back pain is just tightness in the core and the pelvic floor and the hips. So we're really going to work on releasing that in the next portion of this workout. Pay attention to even your face muscles. What's your jaw doing? What's your forehead doing? Are you tensing anywhere? What do you need to let go? Even your fingers, your toes. It's a great time too if you want to take off your shoes. You don't have to be wearing shoes for this next portion. All right, moving on, we're going to take the back arm, thread it under the front arm, and then rotate. Ooh, did you hear that back crack? Rotate onto the side of that shoulder, opening up the upper spine, reaching that top arm. And then you can push your hips toward your heels, or you can keep them up a little higher like me. I'm not super flexible, so I'm gonna stay up a little higher. And the goal here is to open up that mid-upper back, taking almost like you're pulling the meat off the bone in those shoulder blades. I don't know a better way to describe it, but you should feel a pull there, and it should feel really good once you release that tension. I'm talking a lot here, of course, I'm trying to coach, but for you, I want you to think about your breath here. Can you really fill that belly up with air? Can you take those deep diaphragmatic breaths and release that tension? Let's go to the other side. Again, just trying to go onto this side of the head if you can here, and just really actively reach those arms away from the body. Ooh, I feel on this side so much more. And don't worry too much about what the legs are doing. Just try to get that openness through the upper back. That's the primary goal of this stretch. Right, almost there. And go ahead and come on out of that stretch. We're gonna move to a cat-cow. So this is great for releasing back tension and also helping engage the deep core and pelvic floor. So we're gonna tuck the chin, look up toward the ceiling, arching that back, letting the belly drop down, and then tuck the chin, round the spine. So you're releasing the core and the pelvic floor here. You're not pushing out through your belly, but rather you're just relaxing. And then you're gonna engage, pulling that belly in toward the spine right here. Just keep moving. This movement should be really fluid. I'm kind of taking time to pause to make sure I don't talk into the mic. But just go at your own pace. It's really fluid. Again, you don't have to worry too much about really bracing your core. You're just gently pulling that belly in. Engaging that pelvic floor. Engaging the deep core. great massage for the organs too. Okay, now we're gonna take the knees really wide here. I'm gonna show you this from the side and then the front. So knees really wide, maybe even wider than your mat. Flex the feet, and we're gonna come down onto the forearms and just push the hips back. Try to really open up those hips. This might feel uncomfortable, so if you need to, you can place towels underneath your knees, or you can always stay up a little higher like here and then work your way down to it. If you have the flexibility, you might even be able to go chest to the ground here. But what I want you to focus on is that openness through the hips. So I'll show you from the front here. Do you see how wide my knees are? I'm trying to open up those hips, and oh my gosh, I am tight here. So I've got to take some deep breaths to really release this pressure. But again, it's a huge contributor to core dysfunction, to back pain, which it would be part of core dysfunction, to have tight hips, abductors and adductors. So we're trying to release that here. You should probably spend more time in that stretch if it was difficult for you, like it was for me, but we're gonna move on for the sake of time. So now we go to a pigeon stretch. You're gonna take that front leg, bend it at 90 degrees. I want you to flex the foot. The back leg can be bent just the same, or you can extend and add a little more work for that hip flexor. But today, we're just gonna stay here. If you want, you could go more advanced if you're comfortable, or you can modify it by bending that back leg. So you can see that I'm shifted over that front leg. My foot is flexed to protect the knee, and I'm really feeling that stretch through my glute, through my piriformis. Whoo, yes, I'm feeling it, especially this side for me is very tight. So breathe into it, try to relax the shoulders, and if you're flexible enough, you can even come down onto the forearms if that feels good for you. But again, it's all about what feels good for you. This is not meant to force anything. Respect your limits, respect where your body's at. We're gonna move on and do the same thing on the other side, so just carefully switch out those legs. Front foot is bent, back foot again can be bent just the same. Flex that foot to protect the knee, or you can take the back leg, straighten it out, just shift slightly forward over that front leg. Well, I said that was my hard side, but I don't know, this one feels pretty tight too. And just breathe into it. Let that tension go. Of course, stretching, is good for post-workouts and relieving soreness, relieving tension, but it can also inhibit a lack of stretching, a lack of just mobility can inhibit core function, which contributes to back pain. So of course we want to release those tight muscles in the back, but also improve our core function and thus help eliminate back pain in that capacity. All right, moving on now to a downward dog. Everybody knows this one. We're gonna tuck those toes, feet are hip width apart, arms are extended, we're pushing through the palms, pushing the hips up and back, and my heels don't want to touch the floor right away. My hamstrings and calves are really tight, which is super common in pregnancy and postpartum. So a good idea is to pedal the feet, just work them toward the floor, and just gradually push those hips back, gradually let go. But again, make sure we're not rounding the spine. Keeping that belly button pulled in toward the spine, but you're not overly tense in the core. This is just more of a stretch and release than anything. And maybe you can push back a little more through those heels of your hands, lift the hips a little higher, get the heels a little lower. But if not, my heels don't want to go lower today, so accept where you're at sometimes. Okay, now we're gonna go to a wide forward fold. So you're gonna take the feet about as wide as your mat, or wider if it allows. You're gonna take your hands, touch the floor if you can, but if not, don't sweat it, and just let your body hang. Just gradually breathe into it. See if you can melt into the floor a little bit more. See if you can extend those legs, straighten. You don't have to lock out the knees, but if you can, straighten them. And that might mean you need to take your feet wider in order to get them straight, and that's okay. We want to try to get them straight to release, again, those hamstrings and calves, which can contribute to back pain because those muscles pull. Everything's connected, so if they're pulling on that spine, it's going to be causing some pressure you don't want. So really important to release that too. Just breathe. Let everything go in your neck here. Just let your head hang. right, now we're gonna add a forward fold and we're gonna rotate. So we're gonna take one hand, place it on the ground, opposite hand's gonna lift up and you're gonna look toward the sky. Try to keep your hips square to the floor if you can. Obviously your spine's gonna rotate a little bit. So again, don't sweat it too much. It's not about being perfect here, it's about releasing. I want you to actively push through the bottom arm, reach through the top arm, really try to create openness here. It's already time to switch to the other side. So place that hand down, other hand goes up, reach, open, and breathe. Such an important thing is to create that spinal mobility, especially in the thoracic spine too, because of how much our posture suffers with rocking, breastfeeding, holding the way we hold our babies, and just do everyday tasks really takes a toll. Now gradually, slowly lift up to the top. We are done. That is the end of our postpartum back pain workout. So I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you want something to add to this workout to help continue to strengthen and support those back muscles, I have several postpartum posture workouts in addition to strength and core workouts that are going to help supplement and help you continue to heal and keep you strong throughout your pregnancy and postpartum period. Let me know what you think of that in the comments, and I will see you back here for our next workout together.